Ready.
Hello, guys. Stand by for a quick intro. Welcome back to another episode of the Strongman Winner Circle podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Canby, and this is episode 68 with CJ Krause of Denver, Colorado. CJ has been competing many years, originally as an 80-kilo athlete, and has recently moved up to the 90-kilo weight class and has been taking the world by storm, winning the Kaos Classic over in the UK, taking many podiums, OSG finals, and doing well at many of the shows that he has, along with some deadlift records. So let's sit down with CJ to talk all things strongman, lifting, nutrition, and his competition that's coming up this weekend, the Shaw Classic. So stay tuned. And while I have you guys here, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and notification bell so you know when all the podcasts and other episodes are coming. So tune in for today's episode of CJ Krause on the Strongman Minnesota podcast. All right. Welcome back, everybody. CJ, how are you? Long time. Good to see you.
Doing great. Yeah, it's good to see you again, man. It's been a long time, but it's been good. Hope you've been doing well.
I'm recovering, so it's fun to get back into the swing of things. I just came back from the gym, but yeah, last time we chatted. Let's see, was that maybe the Arnold? You look like you've got a new title under your belt and looking like you're hungry for more. So it's all really exciting.
I think it's going great. I mean, like I said, I'm elated to get my first big win. I've been a lot of podiums, a lot of finals, and this is my first win at this level. So it's really exciting.
Very awesome. So outside of strongman, we'll start a little kind of lighthearted. So you're competing at the Shaw Classic. Do you have any outfits picked out for competing this weekend?
They require the athlete shirt, of course, but because it is indoors, I will have my white and red Pit Vipers. I'll have my black Born Primitive jorts, and I'll probably wear the same black and red Air Jordan 1s for the show, just to kind of keep all color coordinated that way. So, but indoors with the stage lighting, the Pit Vipers are where it's after log.
All right, excellent. Now, do you mix up shorts, or do you rock with one shorts the whole weekend?
I'll mix up shorts usually, depending. I have multiple colors. Like, I swear by the Born Primitive jorts to compete in. They're like extra warmer pants, but I have a couple pairs of the same colors just to make sure I can do a competition. And so.
All right, excellent. Well, very looking forward. But right now, for the people that you guys don't know, CJ's of course, the Shaw Classic, you have lightweight and heavyweight in the open classes outside the pro. So CJ stepping up to U231s again, like you did back at the Arnold Amateur a couple years ago. But yeah, how do you feel about competition getting into the field of 50?
I mean, I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. I'm going in with trying to give no expectations on myself. This is it's an hour drive for me. Day one is really good events for me. So I could sneak a top 10. I believe that for sure. I mean, I'm undersized, but this day one's all about how well you can press and how well you can move. So I think I can shock some people and sneak a top 10 at least.
All right, excellent. So the first three events, you have the log press for max, you have a death medley, and you also have an arm over arm. Is that right?
No, it's actually log press 275 for reps. So it's different than the pro men's. And we have a farmer's carry, 2 different farmer's implements. 275 down, 325 back, I believe. And then a death medley, which is going to be 275 sandbag, 300-pound Hustafel sandbag, and then you have the Prowler type push back to finish it off. So that's day one's events for the prelim. And they cut to top 10. So only the top 10 get to do day 2 and day 3.
That's pretty wild. And you got 4 more events after that, right?
Yep, 2 each day. So the 2 events on Saturday would be the circus dumbbell for reps. I believe it's 180 pounds. And then power stairs, it's 5 steps, 350, 400, and 450 for the 3 power stairs. And then it's max hammer tire deadlift on Sunday, and then Atlas stones, all same height platforms ranging from, I think, 300 to 400.
All right. Interesting. Well, of course, that'll be a great finish, and you're going up against some great company. I heard, unfortunately, Brandon Burley had to pull out due to bronchitis. I was chatting with him today, but you still got Alimo. You got Richie Muchigamba. You got Alex
Yeah.
Soka. So I thought originally Burley was going to be probably my top one to take it. I think between
Yeah,
Burley. Go ahead.
I had Burley as my top pick. I had Burley winning the show. Honestly, he has worked so hard for that. That breaks my heart for him.
Yeah, he's of course Alec is up there too as well for me, but I think Burley has the matchup wins against Alex, so I think just a little more well-rounded. So of course it's unfortunate to see there. What are you thinking about the heavyweight open? You probably saw some of the guys. You got guys like Guardione and Josh Spurgeon, Tim Buck, all competing for that pro spot next year. Have you were able to size up the heavyweight men?
I mean, they're good to see out there. I mean, like I said, Josh and Tim look good. That's some of the bigger ones that I saw. That you brought up some of the top guys, I think. But you know, with the open men, that like anything can happen. It's just a shakeup. Especially the biggest thing. A lot of this is how well they're conditioned, because again, this altitude shift is a big difference. And that day one is a rep fest or a running event. It's the hardest one. So the more static athletes need to survive day one to use their power for day two and day three.
Interesting. That's a good point. Actually, me and Johnny Alima were talking about it on the last podcast about adjusting to the altitude. Since you live in Denver and from Colorado, what are your thoughts about like people coming from lower altitudes and competing in higher altitudes? Is it like more of like similar to like a time zone change? It helps if you're here for a few days, like that's what Lucas Haddon did. But what's your thoughts about training and competing in high altitude?
I mean, full acclimation takes a few weeks. It doesn't hurt to get here sooner, but it's not going to make the biggest difference. The biggest thing I would say is that just how big your gas tank is and knock off like 5 to 10%. So if people are getting like 10 reps in training, they're probably going to hit 8 in comp, but they're just going to gas out. That's the hardest part. The farmers, I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with, just because I think it's quick enough and short enough, only 2 of them. The full medley would be the tougher one. It depends how heavy these movements are for them and how well they've conditioned. When it comes to the day 2 and day 3 events, only 2 events and plenty of break time, they'll be fine. A show more like Pro Strongman League or anything that's like more fast paced, that's when the altitude really hits you. But so much for like a show like this, if like I said, if a static athlete that isn't that conditioning survives day 1, they can do damage day 2 and 3. But I think the most conditioned athletes will make it out of day 1.
All right. Interesting. I'll be interested in terms of those athletes, but like, of course, we've watched of course, they have the other open classes over the past years. You have the pro men. Of course, it always looks like Brian kind of always does really well under these conditions. Of course, he's not competing this year, but he was also competing with his own equipment. So I'm wondering if it's like, does he have his own equipment advantage back then? Did he have the change in altitude advantage? So it's all pretty.
At the top level, any advantage is an advantage, right? Any small little thing. We saw a lot of that when we talk about the Kaos Classic. I think that Josh had a really great advantage and utilized it to his best thing to come second at the Kaos because he touched that equipment every week. He knew how everything felt. So if you know how something feels, you can run farmers every day, but for different farmers, it's going to make a small little bit of difference. And when 2 athletes are great, that 1% difference makes the difference in the event.
I was thinking about that because Josh has competed at of course, it was held at their gym, right, at Rhiannon's and Luke Davies' gym. So I think Josh has been there plenty of times. So it probably felt like a normal Saturday for him.
Yeah. So, which I think, more power to him. If I had the ability, I would do it too. I'm not taking it away from anybody. I would love that ability. Just you don't always get that, so you got to work with what you got.
Absolutely. Are you sticking around to watch the pro show?
Yeah, I plan to. I mean, I like supporting the pro men. They're a lot of fun to watch. Like I said, with all the athletes that are out there, and me and Bobby have been chatting a bunch about the show, so it's good to see him getting ready for that.
Mr. Thompson,
Mr. Thompson, I eat 10 pounds of rotisserie chicken a day and only drink Celsius. Yeah,
really? Is that really his diet?
No, he's really clean. I just make fun of him whenever he's traveling. He's like always got Celsius in his bag. I made a post today about it. And then
I saw the Celsius, but I didn't know about the rotisserie chicken. Does he also have a rotisserie chicken in his bag?
All the time. I asked him the other day just as a joke, like how many chickens die per year just to feed you? And he's just like, let's put it this way, birds don't chirp until I get up. So But it works for him. That and like he's for his size. I love what he's done so far and the athlete he's become over the past few years. And talking with him at Pro Strongman League, the '80s show and the U73 women's, and like picking his brain on stuff was really cool when I had the opportunity to. We were staying at Tyler's place, so we just hung out a bunch.
Interesting. Now, do you have a take in terms of who you're expecting to win this weekend or your podium?
Oh, it's that's the hardest thing to call right now is that one. I mean, obviously, you can't rule out Evan if he has a good day, right? He's one of the harder athletes to beat if he has a good day. I believe Hathor's doing this one, right? He's on this one, so
yeah, he's and it seems like his pressing has gone a little better. So since Arnold, so he's coming back from that pec injury.
That's why I think that's the thing is how well the multiple presses are going to affect him. But you can't take him off podium either. And then Hooper, so it's kind of the Hoopers I have the win, but that's kind of my 3-2-1.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's a lot of people's 3-2-1. So we'll see if enemy kind of mixes in or gets into that spot. I think.
Like I said, I think Bobby can do it if he has a good day. If he has his show, I think he can sneak some and steal the right points. And like I said, Evan has to perform. When Evan performs, it's hard to beat, but I love Evan, but sometimes he gets in his own head.
Sure. Yeah, and see if, as long as his hamstring is, of course, he went down with a hamstring injury at, let's see, at the last Giants Live Open. So
I was talking with him today. He seems pretty confident, but Evan's always confident. But I like seeing athletes confident and not like hesitant, especially when you're talking to one-on-one. Like you're not like talking to like media or things like that. So he seems really prepared for this. So,
all right, excellent. So I'm excited for his Triple H entrance like he did at the Giants. It was pretty much I think the same music and the same walkout. So I did enjoy that. If anybody's a wrestling fan, but we mentioned before the show, last time we chatted, you were an 80 kilo gentleman. Now you're a 90 kilo gentleman athlete. How's the transition been? And tell us about like maybe the difference between 80 kilo guys and 90 kilo guys, if there's any.
I think there's actually a massive difference, and I'll go over that in a second. One of the biggest things is I was a large 80. Like I was like making massive cuts to make 80. The main thing of that was I just didn't have the confidence in myself, in my opinion, at the time to feel like I was strong enough to go up. I was wrong. So athletes that are like holding on when they're like nearly 200 pounds, like I was like 194, 195, competing at 80, doing massive water cuts. Just let your body grow is my want to shout out to that. If people are on the cusp, just have that happen, but do it properly. I took a leap to do Kaos Classic last year. It was my first 90 show, like my first real one where I actually was like, I'm going to train and be a 90. And then after that, I learned a lot. But I took time for that show. I didn't compete for half the year, just took that one in. And I realized I was still too small. Not by a lot. I did well. I was fighting for a podium spot. But if I wanted to reach the level I wanted to, I knew I had to take time. So I actually skipped like every show after PSL 9s. I just jumped right to, I didn't do OSG. And that was the best decision for my strongman career I could do, because I focused on my calorie count properly and put on a good like 10, 11 pounds of good weight. So now I walk around approximately like 212 to 216, which is a good range to be in for cuts to a 90 kilo athlete, which is 198. My biggest advice for that one is just take the time and eat properly and understand that you might miss a small opportunity, but you can set yourself longer for better performance down the line if you take the time and let your body build slowly. But when it comes to terms of 80s versus 90s athletes, obviously the 90s athletes, the static tension is just through the roof. The static athletes in that class is crazy different on that one. When it comes to moving events, so the 80s have the more speed events. So I think that kind of benefits me running against so many quick athletes for years that I became one of the fastest athletes instantly. And the biggest difference between 80s and 90s, I would say, is the grip. For some reason, the 80s guys have insane grip, and I have very good grip too. That's when I moved to the 90s, that was my biggest advantage. Like I will not drop a farmer's. I've never dropped one in like 9-10 years competing. So I know that. But then there's some really insanely strong athletes. Like grip is that's their weakness. So I could exploit that. as well in the 90s. With the 80s, I was one of the top grip, but it didn't get me as many points, right? So I think that's one of the key differences that if you're trying to be a 90s athlete, if you have good grip, you can do pretty well, is what I've learned.
Interesting. I wasn't. The grip piece I didn't really think about in terms of the kind of like even for a weight gain, but I think that makes a lot of sense. I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. You skipped OSG for your development to become a 90 kilo athlete. Was that tough for you?
At first, it was. I talked to my coach, Gabriel Pena, about it, and I was like, I think I could do well. I understand that. I think I do well, but I think I could set myself for a long. This was my decision. I just sat down and thought about it, and I was like, I can keep grindstone and pushing through and everything, or I can I will give myself a full like 5-6 months to develop and build the missing links that I saw in my first 2 90s competitions facing 90s athletes. I'm very analytical, and you're always it's Strongman's not facing people directly, but if you know what to look for, you can look for advantages in the point structure, like knowing who you're facing, knowing what they're good at, what you can get a point on them on, and knowing where to pull back. Like that's just one thing. I don't want to call anybody out, but like I look at everything with that. So we took a plan, we sat down, talked about it, and just developed everything where we need to work on this, this, and this to get it to this level. We're not going to work on this and this because you're already at that level. And sitting down, having analytical time, and that just takes time. And when you're training for shows back to back to back, you really can't work on your weaknesses or build things to where they need to be a top guy, which I wanted to be a top guy, not just be a top 10 finisher, but someone that can fight for podium in every show.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what kind of effect has Gabriel Pena had on you as a athlete? How long have you been working with him?
5 years I've worked with him. Right before the first trip to the Arnold I had, which was in 2020. So I started working with him directly after Nationals 2019, where I took 3rd place because I was coaching myself back then. And I realized at that time, I made it as far as I could coaching myself. I need someone else to watch me, right? Even like people call me thinking I'm a deadlifter now. I was only a good deadlifter. I took like 3rd on that deadlift event at Nationals that year. And he saw things that I wasn't going to see myself by how my videos were sent in. He saw pieces of my training that needed to be worked on. He worked on my gas tank. Like he just worked developing my ability to work under heavy load for long duration. It was tough. It's always tough. But yeah, that's one big thing he's done for me is like, and he's a great deadlifter. So he got me to become a great deadlifter. But knowing what I know now, I had all the ability, but not the eye for it back then. And he gave me that ability. And then we started working on like my press, which was up until about 2 years ago, one of my biggest weaknesses. So I think just what the biggest impact he has is that he's patient enough to know how long it takes and how much we can work on in the time we have. And we really hit it hard. And then we go to the next thing while not losing what we already built.
No, interesting.
I was not a complete athlete until recently, the past couple of years. But if you're not a complete athlete, you can't just like still keep mediocrity. You need to like take the time and work through it.
Absolutely. I like the piece about pressing. I remember, I think it was last year. I think you were ecstatic that you tied for first place on the log. I think that was. Yeah. I remember you being very pumped about that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's was the biggest struggle for me for years. I never even when I did that, I didn't think I was a good presser. I thought I hit the number I wanted to hit, but I respected the athletes so much to be like, I'm going to get like 5th place hitting that number, and I'm fine with that, and end up winning the event. And this past year, I hit the exact number I wanted to hit, and it got me 3rd, which is good. I'm ecstatic about that, hitting a 352 axle clean and press. That was a PR for me. So.
Absolutely. So of course you have a great deadlift now. Your press has been coming up to where you're either winning or podium the events. Would you say you're one of the more static 90s out there, or is there another static 90 that you would put yourself up against?
I'm not sure. There's many guys that can hang with me on both pull and press, and that's kind of where I get a lot of my points. It's the fact that like I know there's better deadlifters than me, like Gav McAfee and Dan Benson, but I outpress them. I know there's better pressers than me, like Derek Owens, but outpull him. So it's just like I'm not going to be far off the points, and I'll get the points back, and that helps me a lot because I'm not sure if there's like I might be missing somebody, but someone that can keep up with me on both and outpoints me after those two events pass. It's very I can't think of anybody honestly.
Well, usually a strong deadlift and press is a great recipe to win contests because it's 40, usually sometimes 40% of the show. So,
Yeah.
So sometimes the static, and I always say that like the press and deadlift is where probably most athletes spend their time training and put the most emphasis
Mm-hmm.
in. So if you can beat those guys and where they put the most time in, that's usually a good recipe for success. So I think what made Mitch Hooper, like for instance, so strong when he came out, just because he just was always doing really well in the press and the deadlift. Of course, I think I remember him before the first Worlds, he pulled like somewhere around like 1,047, and then had like a 475 push press out of the rack, which was pretty nuts. So
It's so rare to have an athlete be able to do both, and that's something I really wanted to develop because, like I said, my press was lacking, and I recognized that. And you have to swallow that pill, and then you got to put the work in. We were doing 2 press sessions a week. That's one of those events you can hammer because it just doesn't fatigue you as much. It doesn't have to be like you're on max effort each time, but you can still build those push muscles that way. And that's what and some people have to do that. I had to do that to have that because like we already got my deadlift there, but I was losing too many points on press. That these athletes are so good that it comes down to a coin flip on some moving events, and I want to be able to be ahead of it in case the coin doesn't fall my way.
Interesting. But I used to say that if you wanted to be a pro, you had to be at least good at one of the two things where you're taking top points in either the press or deadlift. And then if you want to win shows, you got to have both of those have to be pretty good, as well as some of the other events. But if you think about if it's usually, I think more often than not, a lot of our contests are 5-event shows. If you're really good at the deadlift and the press, and then you're really proficient in one other event, and you're beating most guys 3 out of 5 events, that's a great recipe for success.
It's hard to make up that gap.
Absolutely. CJ, let's talk about you being the winner of the 2nd annual Kaos Classic. Now, did you get out there ahead of time?
Yeah.
Did you? So tell us a little bit about your prep and leading into the show.
Well, I mean, I always plan for overseas trips. This is about my 4th trip overseas now to England. So I kind of have an understanding of what can go right, what can go wrong. It's my first trip out there. They lost my bags. I was competing at a show without any kind of equipment. I had to borrow it. Luckily, the vendors were giving them a bunch of stuff. I was able to get like knee sleeves from A7. They were giving me a bunch of stuff. So I know the worst case scenario can happen. So I always try to get there a little bit early. My girlfriend was competing as well. She was competing the day before I was, and we were both on our water cuts. Hers was a little bit bigger than mine by percentage, but we're still both having to go through the process. So we planned on getting there the Tuesday before. She competes Saturday, I compete Sunday. We ended up getting there on Wednesday because of 20 hours of flight delays. Again, what can go wrong? It's kind of what I planned for a lot of the time. So any athletes planning to travel international, it doesn't hurt to give yourself an extra day, especially if you're water cutting, because things can go wrong real quick with all of that. But yeah, besides that, the prep was great all the way before. I think everything was going through. The Kaos events were just things when they first released them. This is the first show I saw. Like, man, this is heavy, but none of the weights scare me. Like, I can hit all these weights today, besides like the maxes, of course, that you always want to push that farther, which like made me feel very confident going into the show when it comes up. But when it comes to getting out there, that's really just preparation. I have a good friend, Mark Cummins, who also competed out there. I always stay with him. So shout out to Mark. Thank you for letting me stay in your guest bedroom and driving us up from London all the way up there and to compete against me and planning everything.
Mark, you said?
Mark Cummins, yeah. So
right,
he's my he's the best. I've competed against him multiple times now, and anytime I travel out there, he says, "You're staying with me. I'm taking care of everything," which is a great friend to have. So he like planned the Airbnb because he lives there. I'll do the same thing when he comes out here. We did a show out in Denver here, so it's like it's just good to have friends too.
Absolutely. You mentioned you lost your bags on the way, so you lost your equipment on the way to the contest. Did you check your equipment bag?
So this time I didn't. I was carrying my equipment bag with me now because the first time I traveled out there, I did lose my equipment. But this time, they did lose our bags, but they only lost my clothes bag, and that came about a day and a half later. Which again, getting out there so early, we don't compete till Sunday. We got there Wednesday. I was able to get my clothes before we drove up to Preston. But pro tip: always use your carry-on for anything you need for competition, like everything. What shoes you need, what wrist wrap, what your hard belt, everything. Just always have that in your carry-on. Like pay the extra $50, whatever. It's worth it because things can happen.
I said the same thing. I think I've said it probably 3 or 4 times on this podcast. I've seen so many times people losing their bags or just because they checked it. They have short layovers and whatnot. It's just too much of a risk to leave it to chance. I always check the bag on the way back when you have time to do it. You don't want you're tired. You don't want to carry it. You don't want to carry the stuff. But yeah, on the way there, carry it.
I actually had to leave a bunch of stuff in England to fit the giant plaque they gave me for the trip back. Because I had an extra bag that had a portable sauna in it, but I had to leave that in England because the plaque that they made for the winner was just so big. It took almost the whole regular size suitcase up and to fit the championship belt and all that. So first world problems. I had to use the entire bag for my trophies.
You didn't want to carry it on the plane, like sit in your lap the whole time?
It wouldn't fit. It's so big. It's like a Hustafel almost. It was like way bigger. Like I was talking with Luke about it. He's like, yeah, I told them to make them a little bigger from third, second, and first. I did not think they were gonna make it this big. It was almost 20 pounds. Like, and there's also a championship belt that was like real like WWE style, thick, strong metal belt. They did a great job with the trophies. So yeah, I'm happy with that. And
definitely not forgetting about that. So you're pumped about your 352 axle press, and then you guys did you guys have a max deadlift there too?
Deadlift. It was deadlift for reps. It was 750 pounds, or you could do I think it was like 630, but I was never looking at the lighter deadlift bar. So 750
it was either,
for reps.
It was either 630 or 750.
Something like 680, somewhere around there. Like
okay,
so somewhere around that range, where like so people can still get reps. It was like a Trump style, where like one rep of the heavy bar beats any reps of the lighter bar. But like some people, like 750 is a big deadlift, like it is. For any weight class. So they give people options, which I think is good. I like the shows that do that. Because like it sucks having someone just zero and their show's done because they can't hit a really big number, right? That's why I think it's really cool that more shows are going towards that option A, option B situation. But yeah, deadlift, 750. I only got 2. I got 2 in the first 10 seconds. And I came in with a back injury. I've been injured since about January. I was telling people, like, I haven't deadlifted since the show. This is the first week since January I woke up without pain this year, and it's August. So because I've taken time away from deadlifting, but I couldn't do that for Chaos. So I got my best days in training. I was getting 6 on average on the 750. But when I went for the third pull, my back just like popped again, and I was wearing a belt the rest of the show. But I got 2. That was my joint event win. So it's still doing very well on that event, but. That's something I'm like, I hate to be like I underperformed on an event win, but I feel like I did.
I remember seeing the list. There was a lot of ties, but but it's still, that was a heavy reps, especially. Was that the third event or second event?
No, yeah, that's the one thing about hard about Chaos, and they said I brought this up to Luke on other podcasts before. I think the hardest thing about the shows they ran the past 2 years is someone like myself who is good at pressing and good at pulling. I didn't get a warm up for my deadlift. I got the suit on and I pulled maybe like a 450-pound pull, maybe 500 pounds. And I had to go out there and deadlift 750 for reps because it was that fast paced. And the guys that got busted out early on the max event were able to go warm up, get their suit ready, get set up, do everything. And he said he's going to find a way to rectify that next year. Cause I feel like these past 2 years, I've not been set up to perform as well as I could. And it's not just me. Any athlete that can push and pull kind of gets stuck in that situation where you don't get to warm up. Because the suited deadlift too, as you know, getting a suit on takes time. So, and especially when you're trying to build up to near maximal weight, because my max pull I've ever pulled in training is around 825. So 750 is pretty close.
Yeah, it was definitely a great performance. Going to the last event, you had the sandbag over bar. Now, were you sitting in first at the time going into that last event, or did you crawl?
Josh and I were exactly tied. So going into that event, we had an exact tie on points because I took second on the farmers to him And then the way the medleys all shook out, we had literally, it was me versus him. So we had about a 5-point lead on third and a 7-point lead on fourth. So it was hard to get ahead of us. So when we went head to head, it was him versus me. He actually got, so it was 4 bags starting with 220 pounds, then 265, then 305, and then 352. That was the bags we had to load. I have never loaded a 352 more than a couple times. I've never loaded in a series. I know he has never loaded 352 in a series as well. So going to that strategy was I have to beat him on 3 bags just in case I can't get that 352. Like, period. That's the rule. I have to get him there. He actually got to the 305 bag before me. I just was able to lap it and get it over the bar quicker than him by half a second. So I think just my pure strength just was a little bit more than his that day to get that bag over the bar. I did the 3. Neither of us got the 4th bag. I did it in 10.5 seconds. 3 bags. He did 11.1, I believe.
Ooh, close.
Yeah, very close.
But yeah, that's the type of things where you just had to dig down and dig deep.
I saw him touch the bag before me. Like, I saw him get to the bag first. We were literally running to the middle, and I just had to I have to one motion this. That was the only thing I thought. Like, I have to get this one motion. I have to do it, and I was able to pull it out. So.
And that was what, a 300-pound bag?
Yep, 300-pound bag. That was pure adrenaline. Honestly, like, run that back. It's just like I if you watch my show backwards, like throughout all of them, every single one of my races, besides the farmers only won outright one. I was behind going into the second half of each of those. On the yoke medley, I slipped a little bit and I dropped it, but I was still able to beat Tyler Davis. On the sandbag and drag medley, I had Harry Rogers. He got to the drag before me, but I was able to do a better drag faster than him. And then Josh got to the bag. So I tell everyone, like, the athletes I competed against pushed me to beat them. That's the only reason I was in the position I was to get enough points.
Interesting. I did want to mention, you talked a little about the yoke and how you came second to Josh. I was surprised you won the yoke wearing lifters. That's the first time I've seen someone do really well in doing lifters. So maybe he'll watch this and he'll comment later why lifters was an advantage for him. But
I talked to him going in. That was his strategy. Him and Mark Cummins, who I think Mark took third on that event too, were both wearing lifters during that. And it also could just be a familiarization with that yoke itself. It was a very advantageous yoke to lift with. I'll tell you that right now, because it was very narrow. It was very tight to you. So like,
it does help.
Learn it. Yeah. So it was very good for what we had to do. Like 910 pounds is no joke on your back, and to be able to run with that was the hard part. But it was interesting to see that. I think if I didn't slip, it would have been a lot closer. But I saw his run, and all honesty, that was in the back of my mind, and my shoulders got ahead of my hips, so I skidded a little bit and I had to repick. So I got it done in about 11 seconds, and he got it done in the 8. But like, if I don't have that slip, I think it would have been close because I was getting it in about 9 seconds of training.
Sure. Usually at the shows, you have like some of the guys that get like top 10 or like 7th or 8th are usually like the guys that are going to be competing for the top of tomorrow or in 2 years. Any notable youngsters you want to shout out?
I mean, speaking of that, I got 8th last year and ended up winning this year. So yeah, that's how it works, right? You jump up the next year. I mean, Victor, amazing athlete. Philippe.
Who's Victor? Where's he from?
Really Switzerland. He's an insane athlete at pressing. If his deadlift catches up with it, he's going to be a monster. I was talking with him. Very nice guy. Very serious guy. And he was just upset with his deadlift and things like that. So he'll come back stronger next year, but he hasn't lost the show in a long time. So maybe this is one of those things where like you needed to take a hit to realize how good you can be. Philippe, I forget where he's from out there. He's like 19 years old, young kid, just really good, really efficient. He's tall and he's got way room to grow muscle on him. He's going to be dangerous. As a lot of these guys are in their like early 20s right now. Like Harry Rogers is like, I believe 20. And he's out in England. So like I need to roll with this for now, because a few years from now, when they grow into their bodies and they kind of get stronger, it's gonna be real dangerous, this whole sport. So it's exciting to see what's ahead of us for the 90s right now, because all these guys are just young and good. But yeah, those are the guys I would say look out for out there in England and Europe and all of that. So those are some guys that I think deserve the praise.
So last year's champion Dan Benson, he didn't compete, but is he competing this weekend at the European Championships for OSG?
He is. He is. That's why he didn't do the Chaos Classic. He felt like if he did both, it wouldn't be like he couldn't focus on both of them. I was speaking with him. I was really upset. I really wanted to face him again. But yeah, we're the only two Chaos champions. We've been talking back and forth a little bit. We're excited for OSG. That's what's really going to show out. I'm excited to go against them again at the official OSG, official Strongman games in Madison. Yeah, I think he's the guy to beat right now outside of me. So it's fun. We haven't been head to head since last year, and I'm a lot better athlete than I was last year.
So we'll see. We'll see what kind of shape he is then going into this weekend, and then we'll see what he shows up in. Maybe
it's his second show post bicep tear, I believe. He won England's or British Strongest Man, so I know he's back and ready. And he had great competition there because Jake Allen, another guy we can shout out, took third out there. He's a young kid, and then Gab got second at to Dan recently. So I think he's healed from his bicep tear. That's why he didn't do OSG last year. So it'll be fun to see how he performs this year. I have him winning OSG Europes again, so he'll be back-to-back champion.
Yeah, bicep tears are a menace, but they're recoverable. I had Tristan Hoth on a couple episodes ago, and he tore his bicep in 2022. And of course, look at the run that he's making now, just at every major show and looking pretty good. And then I see guys, Singleton as of course ferocious as he pulls and ferocious as he competes. He tore both biceps, and they're both hanging on. So it does give me a little bit of hope.
You'll come back strong.
Yeah, it looks like I think this is Jeff Lee. He says he's going to drop down to 90s, but no, Jeff, you already said the other day you're going heavyweight, so I'm going to keep you to that.
Jeff, you'll be a skeleton at the 90s. You are so tall. Like you just see nothing but skin and bones.
The first contest I ever competed with Jeff, it was 2019 Nationals in Reno, and he competed as an 80 kilo at being 6'2". So that was a very tough for him. And then he skipped 90 and went right to 105.
What's probably where his body should be. I mean, I think I've like met Jeff in passing, talked to him a couple. I think he's the nicest guy. I would always want to compete against him. Honestly, that'd be a goal of mine when I do one of these like jump up shows. Maybe compete against him at a 105 show.
Well, that means you have to. Well, Jeff's bumping up, so you got to go heavyweight. And
I can't get that big. I've been eating nonstop to get to like 215. Oh my god.
Not yet. So staying on like of course this is you're a 90. This is kind of a 90s show. Is the Chaos Classic, is that like the international show most 90s strive for? I know, of course, there's the Ultimate Strongman, which has when you take a look, has like really great representation from all like the European countries. You have OSG that probably has the deepest talent. Of course, a lot of Americans, but like some of the deepest talent. But like, what's the scene at right now in your head, and where you think it's going?
I mean, I think it's the best time to be a 90. I've never seen this much opportunity in the sport. That's what kind of like enticed me when they were doing the Chaos. I heard about the Chaos Classic when I was went out there just for a qualifier show for something else, and they're talking about that. And like, hey, if you podium this show, we'll invite you to the Chaos Classic. And I'm like, oh, I was an 80s guy back then. I'm like, sure, let's see what happens. I ended up winning that show. So they invited me and that started my 90s career a little earlier than I thought it was going to be. But I think it's because it's the heaviest and it has the most representation of countries. If you look at both Chaos, from the women's and the men, the 64 women's and the 90s men, 6 podium spots, obviously. There's 5 different countries represented. You don't see that too often. So I think it's a big deal. The only country, because we had Australia for the women, and then you had America was third for the women. And then for the men, there was America first, Britain second, Poland third. So you get athletes from all over the world, and we can look at the representation from like Germany was at Chaos Classic. There was. So I think being the heaviest show also in history, I think also puts Chaos Classic up there. But there's so many great shows right now that you could do as a 90. We have Pro Strongman League coming up. That's going to be international shows. I know athletes are coming from Germany and England to do that one in Roanoke. So that's something that's really big. They're doing a great thing for the sport. And then OSG is OSG. That's the world's finals that a lot of people consider the highest level. I think they all react different though, because Pro Strongman League and Chaos Classic are one-day shows. They have two different philosophies, where Chaos Classic wants to push the boundaries of weight and how heavy we can go. Pro Strongman League tests a lot of your ability of athleticism and endurance. And OSG is really good for athletes that don't respond well to one-day shows. It's over 3 days. So it's kind of cool to see the opportunities we have and what kind of athletes can perform at all three. So they all react different. And this is the first year Strongman Corporation is doing a paid U90 America's Strongest Man. So for the American athletes, it's awesome there too, so we can see that happen. So it's not just, when I first started, the 90s were a subclass of middleweights for years. There's nothing you could do. You podium the nationals, you get to go to be a 231 at the next show at the Arnold Amateur, right?
Yeah, it used to be kind of a stepping stone. It was kind of, you would win nationals at 90, and then it's like, oh, you need to bump up and test yourself against the 105s. But it's glad that you're seeing, all this opportunity. Do you think that the 90s are there almost like the different, like, so for instance, like, are 90s just a bigger 80 or 90s just a smaller 105? Or do you think 90s their own kind of, I would say, in their own little world of?
I think the 90s are their own entity. That's the thing about it, because a lot of the guys that were bumping up to the 105s were guys that were small 105s. That was hard for them to do, but they were still really good, but they never could reach that pinnacle, right? Like someone like myself, I can't get to 231, dude. I break 220, I can't breathe. My frame is not that big. I can go out there and battle you guys, but I'll never be a 231 athlete out there. I know that. Or like, I'll be a fat 231 athlete if I make it that big. But I stayed 80s for a long time, and there's no opportunities for 90s. I was probably there longer than I should have been, because there's more opportunities. I can go to nationals, I can go to the next level and still be an 80. So I think with the opportunities we're going to see over the years, this middle ground where we're seeing these athletes that have to press over 300, period. That's the barrier of entry. You have to deadlift close to 800, period, to be a top guy. And you don't get that in both the 105s and there's like this, like, you have to do this and this and be able to sprint, because you can't get away without being able to run. I think it's just a good hybrid between the two of them, where it's going to force athletes to be as athletic and strong as they can be, but also be able to build into their frame. So it's nice to have that middle ground now.
All right. Of course, that makes a lot of sense. But of course, moving on. So you're, of course, when you're not doing a lot of strongman, you do some coaching, programming, nutrition, weight cuts. How's business going?
Oh, I love it. It's my GSK Nutrition is what I do. GSKnutrition.com for any of your weight cut and nutrition needs on that one, month to month, whatever works for you guys. There's my shameless plug. No, I got plenty of athletes. I had 2 athletes make weight this week. I have athletes contacting OSG. I love it. It's my favorite thing, working with these guys, showing them the levels they can go to. One of the athletes competed this past at America's Strongest Man U105, Chris Otero. I worked with him and got
Chris is one of yours.
Yeah, he's one of mine. He came to me because the weight cuts were very rough. Like, I got him his easiest weight cut, and he got his pro card that weekend. So I love being able to do that for athletes, show them how to properly cut and maintain their diet and work with them, and not just like overtake what they're doing, but like look at everything and how to get them and perform. That's my biggest thing. They make weight and perform. And it's just, business is good. My books just opened up for the rest of the year if anybody has cuts coming up, and they're filling fast. I don't overbook myself because I want to give the athletes what they need and not have to, divvy my brain too much doing too many things. So if you guys have any shows coming up, please contact me and we can get your weight cuts going the right way.
What's the best way to contact you?
I have the website, gsknutrition.com. You can fill out a little survey and shoot an email to me, or just DM me on Instagram, Giant Slayer Krause. Those are 2 ways to get in touch with me. I'll answer. Tell me what your plan is, and we'll talk about the data I need and see if your plan makes sense, or what timetable would work better for you. Because I'm very open and honest. I won't take on everybody. If you think you're trying to go from like 220 pounds to U80 to go compete at the show in a month and a half, I'm not going to take you on, because it's not going to work and you're just going to hurt yourself. But we can make a plan to diet down to that weight class over the next 6 to 12 months and things like that. If that's your goal. But so yeah, I have a wide variety. And one of the best decisions I made was diving into that and being able to help athletes because I went through such brutal weight cuts, and I had a great nutrition coach to help me through, Beck Lorge. So rest in peace in that. So a lot of things she taught me and a lot of things I know from my background in nutrition, I think can benefit athletes and keep them as safe as possible for doing this.
All right. I wanted to go back. So really quickly, I'm going to have in the description for everybody that's watching this on a recording, I'm going to have the description below the Instagram and his website so you can reach out to him if you guys want to inquire about his nutrition or his coaching. But I want to go back to Christopher Otero. Were you doing his deadlift coaching? Because he busted
No,
out 10 reps at 675. Actually, he got counted for 9, but he pretty much did 10. I think 10 was after the buzzer, but yeah, pretty much 10 reps at 675 after doing a max log. That was pretty wild.
Max, that. Hey, he didn't. I don't do his deadlift coaching actually. He's actually just an insane deadlifter. I met him. A lot of the biggest things is making sure his diet's proper so he doesn't lose his leverage points. Because he's put on about we had him in the off season closer to the 255 mark. He's never been over 242, 243. So you doing a properly to not lose his leverages so he can gain strength from that one. He works with the Rise and Defy Athletics now, so Jordan does his programming. I just do his nutrition. I keep him in line to make sure everything goes the right way. And I work directly with him. I work with any coach that's working with my athletes. But yeah, he's just an insane deadlifter. My God, that dude can just pull. So I met.
I want to say nationals was the first time I got wind of him because I think it was James Deffenbach when he was there that he was mentioning that some 105 pulled 800 as a speed rep and won the trap bar deadlift event.
Yeah, that would be Chris. Yeah, Chris has got a lot of potential moving forward, but I think he's got it, and he finally got a team. Like I said, you get as far as you can without a team, and then you find a team and you just skyrocket. This is one of his first coaching, working with people, and his first nutrition coach that he's working with now. And like I said, he got all the way to the opportunity to earn his pro card. He started working with me, and we got him his pro card. And now he has a coach now to work with the ASM and the OSGs. So I think he's going to make some big leaps having the right team around him.
Is he planning on doing OSG too?
He just got a qualifier coming up. He starts his that's why I've kind of kept him a little leaner the past weeks. He's got his he's in the 24th, 25th show coming up. So we're going to water cut him down starting on Sunday. Because we had him sit a little lighter the last week since ASM. Because ASM, he got invited to last minute for his. He just got his pro card. So we just did that as kind of hey, we're going to do this for fun, see what happens, and kind of do as the tester how much you bounce back with your nutrition. So it's all good data. But his big goal is for OSU this year, and I think he's going to do very well at the qualifier. I have no doubt in his abilities. I think he's going to do very well at OSG when he makes it.
All right. Interesting. Well, that'll be exciting. Yeah, I'm hoping that maybe the powers that be will send me over to OSG with the athletes' prize money or athlete entry level or entry fees for me to come commentate. So
that'd be fun.
That's what I'm hoping for. So I started a new segment, kind of a new version of a fun game, but I call it Start, Bench, Cut. But we'll do the 90s version. So Start, Bench, Cut. Tyler Davis, Andrew Hanus, Derek Owens.
Oh,
they're
that's a hard one.
Yeah, I know. I made it hard on purpose. The last couple were kind of easy, so I thought.
Yeah, I have to start Tyler Davis for how well rounded he is.
All right.
So he's my start. Oh, here's where it gets hard. The bench and the cut. What can you give me a show? Give me 5 events. I'll tell you between
it has to be just your best. Just has to be best possible. You don't know the show. It's best possible chance of succeeding.
Oh, man. This is the hardest one. Okay, I'll try to answer fast. Sorry, I'm just thinking it through. I'm gonna have to bench Derek and cut Hanus, and that's only because they're 2 weakest events. You see more often a deadlift than a grip event in shows. There'll be shows without grip events, and there might be a bag toss. That's where Derek can shine. And then deadlifts are in every show, and I think that's where Andrew is lacking in the 90s a little bit. So that's why I have to go with those 3.
All right. Well, you're cutting the pies on, which is it's okay, but
it hurts, but it's like just looking at his ability. If you like, let's say you put a farmer's carry and you do a trap bar deadlift, I'd put Haynes in the bench spot, and then I'd put Derek as the cut. But Tyler Davis is too well rounded. I tell him all the time we're a coin flip depending on the day, so I got to put him as the start.
Well, that, of course, great answer. Is there anything that grinds your gears in the world of strongman or in the world of lifting or the world of lifting internet, Instagram? Anything
How much time do we have?
We
I'll just leave it with this one. If I want to pick one thing, if athletes are like, I would have done blank at this show and didn't go to the show, or like if they're like, if I was there, this would have happened. You weren't. Don't take into account athletes competing. That's we see that happen sometimes with athletes that are even very good, or some that think they're very good. You don't know the situation they competed in. If you did all these events at your home gym, it's different than when you're out at a show. So guys, just let the athletes enjoy what they did. Let the athletes enjoy their show, and it's not always about you as much as you want it to be. If you're at the show and you win, you can make it a little bit about you. But if you're not there, that's one thing that grinds my gears. If anybody says stuff like that, if I was there, you weren't.
So are these guys that post on the internet, or do they tell you in a group chat? Do they tell you in person? Are they?
I mean, you'll see it in comments sometimes of like live streams. Like I've been like commentating, and people are like, "Oh, if I was there, I would have beaten that with my opener." And I'm like, "You weren't. You didn't show up. Sorry. It doesn't matter. You could have slipped on your way in. Like things can happen. Like, or anybody that makes this like those like, oh, if I had my best day, you didn't. It's all about how you perform. And how you bounce back also helps. It's just like, so yeah, stuff like that. Like the ifs, I should have, I could have. You can say that to like yourself and like as a reflection. Like, man, if I would have performed better, I could have been in a better spot. But you don't take someone else's glory away in that moment. So,
all right. Well, that's a great answer. I appreciate that. CJ, when everything is said and done, what are you looking to accomplish in the sport of strongman?
So I've already gotten one of them now. I wanted one major win. That's my min. And that's what makes this last show so important to me. I want one world record. These are my personal two goals. Anything outside of that is like gravy to me. My main goal is to leave the sport better than I found it for the next generation of athletes. And I believe it's starting to go that way. And I hope that I am a flag bearer for that going that way as an athlete advocate.
All right, excellent. Of course, great answer. So we got about 5 minutes or so. So if anybody has any questions they want to ask CJ, of course, unfortunately, Brad, this is not a question. This is just a statement. Yeah, boy. Thanks for tuning in, Brad. Yeah. Brad is one of my gaming friends from Scotland. So thanks for tuning in, Brad.
Hi, Brad.
But in general, yeah, it's been exciting. So of course, what time are you going to bed right after this? Actually, no, you're at Malden time, so you have a couple hours.
I'm getting sushi after this. I got to feed a little bit. I got to compete tomorrow. So when we get off this, I get some fried rice and some sushi into my system. Maybe wake up a little bit over 220. We'll see.
Perfect. Well, yeah. Of course, that's very exciting. So, so we talked a little bit about, of course, if you're interested in your coaching, the website, you have Instagram. Mm-hmm. Are you on YouTube? Are you on TikTok, Discord, Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook?
I'm not. I'm on Facebook, but I don't use it very much. I need to start getting. A lot of people have been asking me a lot since I was the win about a bunch of doing some YouTube stuff. So I want to talk to you about this later, how you get this up and running on YouTube and all that fun stuff, and how to like work with that, because I just want to. That'd be fun, I think. Because I just want to be able to show people like the story of how I went from 80 to 90. I think it's a very cool way to do it. Because a lot of guys are always looking, how do I get bigger? How do I get stronger? And I did it in a very like methodical way. So I'd love to tell that story, but I don't think it's like a one video post. I think it's like a few ideas and keeping that idea out there. So I think I'm going to start building a YouTube here shortly. I've had a few people reach out to me saying I should. So maybe I'll go to that avenue here soon. But yeah, and besides that, just on Instagram and competing. So and the website, obviously.
Well, excellent. I'll have it on there. Of course, Kurt McGirt's not something. Hey, a little Kurt McGirt, but I don't know what that means. Fortunately, I think. Oh, is that Italian horse in Italian?
That's Italian.
DIT.
It works for both of us. I'm Italian too, so we got.
Where's your family originally from?
I don't know that part of my family actually. So a little backstory about me. I grew up without either of my parents really. So I grew up with my grandmother, who's not that part of the family. So I don't know precisely, but I know that they were full Italian. So I'm half Italian.
Oh,
So
well,
I did,
Paisan, of course, welcome
yeah.
to the circle. And if you ever want to get in touch with your roots, the Italian contest or the Strongman Italia Federation, they welcome any competitor, and they have the best post meal or post contest meals where you do 6 or 7 course meal after a contest and drink wine and have a good time. So maybe
I
chew
need to
on
get
that.
out there.
Yeah, bring the
Yeah.
girlfriend and compete. Jacob Big Broad was out in Italy recently. I wish he wasn't, but I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I like to give
Oh,
Jake
McBride.
time.
He's getting a little big for his britches up in the PSL. He's got a bet versus me on the press events for Pro Strongman League. And
What's the wager?
loser has to do the Blazing Buffalo challenge at Buffalo Wild Wings. Just doing that. So it's just something simple. Because me and Tyler Davis have a bet. The loser has to wear assless chaps to the after party. So that's a little fun stuff. As you probably saw at Chaos, me and Tyler had a bet. Loser had to perform a karaoke for the other person. If I lost, I would have had to put on all strong crew gear and sing "Sweet Home Alabama." As you saw on my Instagram, or if you haven't seen it, it's on my Instagram. Tyler had to dress up with pit vipers, jorts, and a mullet and sing "Danger Zone" to me because I beat him on that one. So
Oh, interesting. I thought for some reason I thought that was you, but I think that I did see that
yeah.
briefly.
So the 90s like to make fun bets. That's one cool thing about the 90s is like we're all competitors. We all respect each other, but at the end of the day, we also like to make these silly bets against each other to embarrass each other. So it makes it fun.
I used to bet against Sean DeMarinis, but all I did was lose money. So I learned,
So
I learned my lesson
we
there.
we don't do much money. We do it for embarrassment. I think we just like that for everything. So it makes it just fun a little bit because Tyler beat Derek at the show, and Derek had to put a signed shirtless picture of Tyler at his gym, at Derek's gym of Tyler. So little bit, and Jacob McBride had to wear a dress to the after party, as
Ooh,
everyone saw.
interesting. That's a tough
So
one, but Jacob, I admire your commitment to the bet.
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
tough one. That's like a
yeah,
fantasy football bet.
yeah. Him and Mark Cummings have a bet going into the next one. So he's got a bet versus me for the press event. He thinks he can beat him in the press event. That's adorable. And he's got a bet versus Mark for the whole show. So I'm hoping that Mark beats Jacob, honestly, because if Mark beats Jacob, Jacob has to wear Daisy Dukes, a crop top, and do a hot wing challenge all in the same night. And that'd be just great to watch.
Well, excited there. Maybe that can be hosted live or recorded on your YouTube channel. So
That's true. We can make it.
something to
Just
consider.
thinking that.
But if you guys haven't already, go follow CJ on Instagram. Of course, like, comment, subscribe, notification bell on this channel. So all the new podcasts coming out next week. I have Shane Flowers, Tommy Lavelle, and Colin Bryce coming back. So I have a trio next week. So that should be a good. Of course, all three should be good calls. But we'll finish up the show. We're almost at the hour mark. What some words of advice you want to leave the listeners, Mr. CJ Krause?
Not really words of advice, but just one thing I like to keep thinking about someone, even as they get better at the sport. This is still supposed to be fun. That's the biggest thing. And you perform better at a show if you're having fun. So remember, even in the moments where it's hard, it's tough, this is a fun thing we do as a sport, and we just lift odd objects and we get to hang out with our friends. So it's serious, but it's also just if you lose the fun, you lose a lot of what the sport's truly about.
All right. Great words. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Stay strong.